I was recently on Elisa Zhen's podcast called Easy FIU, and she brought up a topic to me that I don't get asked about much, which is the act of cutting a broker's commission during a transaction in order to make a deal work when something happens in a transaction. I want you to take a listen to my answer, and remember, my whole goal with every video that I put out to you as the investor is I want you to be able to see more deals. I want you to be aware of every deal that comes to market, because the more deals you see, the greater the chance are that you have it buying one of those deals. Take a listen. Let's go!
When to make a deal work? Sometimes broker will offer cutting their commission. How should the buyer or the seller react to that?
It's very, very rare in which you have a signed listing agreement, an agreed upon commission, you're in a deal, something comes up in the deal, and then either the buyer or the seller suggests in order to make this thing work, the broker should come off their commissions. It's really quite rare, especially the larger the asset, because the players involved know that it's such a small, tiny portion of the overall deal. And that by doing that to the person who procured the deal for you or who brought you the buyer isn't going to help long term. You know, brokers are human beings. Sellers are human beings. Buyers are human beings. People remember that stuff. Yeah. And who am I going to bring deals to? The person who beats me up every time or the person who never beats me up? It's super simple. To answer your question, when you're in a transaction, if you are involved in a deal in which any portion of a broker's commission is literally the deal breaker or not, I promise you shouldn't be buying that deal because it's such a tiny amount. Let me talk about the other side. Absolutely. I've done it myself. When a seller has to concess to a buyer for some reason, something came up and a buyer has to feel some pain. In certain situations, I do think it's not because it's going to make or break the deal, but because maybe the broker should feel some of that pain too. But it should always be proportionate. That's the biggest storyline here. So for instance, like an example in the book, if you have a $20 million deal, and let's say you have a $200,000 commission, and the buyer has asked the seller to come down 5%, $1 million. If you go to the broker and say, hey, listing broker, I'll come off 900 grand. I need you to come off 100. So that means that whatever 100,000 is divided by $20 million. I mean, what is that, like 1%?
Yeah, it's still tiny.
But he's asking me to come down 50%. And I had nothing to do with the pipe that burst or the survey issue or the title issue or nothing. That would be where the broker's brain would be like, if that's where we are, okay, all right, I'll remember that. Let's see how many deals you ever see from me again. So it's going to cost him tens of millions of dollars over the next 20 years. He'll never see another deal. Now, I gave you an extreme example. That never happens to that extreme, right? But my point is that I think brokers in certain situations, they're not pigs. They're going to do what they can to make a deal work for everybody. I think most brokers, just again, as a human being, ask to be treated fairly and proportionate. And you want to do so just because you want to be able to leave that transaction as a buyer or seller with total reputation and respect in hand so that you can continue to do deals together. You should be asking yourself, how do I handle this situation? So when I walk away from it, the buyer and or seller and the broker still love me and can't wait to send me another deal. It's like all these situations we come up with. If you just think about how would I want to be treated? How is a way I can get out of this and still be in love?